Vacuums are amazing things. If you stick an empty balloon in a vacuum, it inflates all by itself. I wish I remembered more things like that from science class in junior high. You know, there is a metaphorical vacuum right now in American politics, the space previously occupied by and pressurized by the Republican Party. Conservative columnist David Brooks says, quote, "It's just a circular firing squad with everybody attacking each other and no coherent belief system, no leaders." Newt Gingrich told a crowd in Indianapolis, quote, "I think the Republican Party is struggling to get beyond incompetence." Ouch. In other words, the Republicans are a party defined more by the absence of stuff right now, the absence of voter turnout, the absence of enthusiasm, the absence of electoral hopes, the absence of obvious leadership, the absence of a sense of direction. So what will inflate in this depressurized, empty atmosphere? There aren't all that many viable balloons when you think about it. John Boehner? Mitch McConnell? Tim Pawlenty? Who's going to blow up big and strong and become the face and the voice and the leader of this party? Maybe that's the central question that Governor Sarah Palin is really trying to answer with the world tour of TV cameras that landed in Alaska this week. In an interview with Fox News' Greta Van Susteren, Governor Palin admitted that, okay, maybe she wasn't totally ready for the national spotlight in 2008, but she's not ruling out divine inspiration to run again in the future.
You know, faith is a very big part of my life, and putting my life in my Creator's hands. This is what I always do. I'm like, okay, God, if there is an open door for me somewhere, this is what I always pray. I'm like, don't let me miss the open door. Show me where the open door is. And even if it's cracked up a little bit, man, maybe I'll plow right on through that and maybe prematurely plow through it, but don't let me miss an open door. And if there is an open door in 12 or 4 years later, and if it's something that is going to be good for my family, for my state, for my nation, an opportunity for me, then I'll plow through that door.
She'll plow through that door. The question in today's news, of course, is whether God or anybody else is about to open a door to a potential seat in the United States Senate that could be plowed through sometime soon. Tomorrow, more than half the 90,000 uncounted votes for Alaska's Senate seat will be tallied. Convicted felon and incumbent Republican Senator Ted Stevens and Anchorage Mayor Democrat Mark Begich are only separated by about 3,000 votes. If Stevens is elected, then if he gets kicked out of the Senate to be replaced by a special election, could that be Sarah Palin's ticket back to Washington very quickly? And is that the trial balloon that the Republican Party has been waiting for? Joining us now from Alaska is Shannyn Moore. She's a blogger and a radio journalist in Alaska. Shannyn, many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Rachel.
Shannyn, we are still trying to figure out what happened with the Alaska election this year. Lots of additional ballots finally getting tallied. The turnout numbers aren't turning out to be as disastrously low as we thought they were before, but they're still below 2004. Are we looking at strange voter behavior in Alaska this year, or are we just looking at weird numbers about voter behavior? Are you suspicious?
Well, it's either suspicious or we're mavericky voters. That's kind of what I'm going for. Maybe we're just sort of mavericky with our voting. No, it's absolutely inconsistent with everything we've seen. And I guess the reason that I was watching it so closely is that the 2004 election, the Democratic Party in Alaska, very brave souls, went and sued to find out what had really happened with that vote. And, you know, once they 16 months later, they were able to get those tabulator files and found out that they had been tampered with right after the judge had said that they had to pass them over. So we're used to having some sort of shenanigans going on, even though we're not able to go back and really find out who did it. So I was watching it really close when it came through this time.
Should the parties, should the country be worried about the vote counting in Alaska right now? Are you worried about either the same kind of shenanigans that have been seen before or all new shenanigans happening as we speak?
I think that there's a lot to look at here. I'm not screaming stolen, but I'm screaming stinky. We had 1,700% turnout at our Democratic caucus. We had, record numbers of people showing up to even register to vote. Between 2000 and 2004, we had 1,100 people register to vote. Between 2004 and 2008, we had almost 21,000. So, did they just all decide to stay home once they bothered to register? And even though we're almost to the same numbers that we had in 2004, we expected much greater things from this election, this ticket, particularly with Sarah Palin on the ticket, motivating a lot of Alaskan Republicans, and Barack Obama, very inspirational to many Alaska Democrats.
Shannyn, Republican Senator Jim DeMint is reportedly going to call on his colleagues next week to vote on kicking Ted Stevens out of the Republican caucus. So there's the prospect of him getting kicked out of the Republican caucus. There's, of course, the prospect of him getting expelled from the whole Senate. If Stevens does get reelected and he does get booted out of that seat, do you think this is an opportunity that Sarah Palin would take?
Well, there's a prospect of him going to prison, too. I just don't think he's aware of that yet. Do I think Sarah Palin would take that? Well, it was interesting you played the clip of her saying that she would go through any door cracked for her by God. She just blazed right through it. I would be careful if I was on the other side of that door, if I were anyone. You know, she's really surprised me. The Sarah Palin I watched campaigning for governor was very different than the one campaigning for president when it came to race baiting, when it came to really sort of a different aggression towards her opponents. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think she'd be on it in a New York second, not an Alaskan one.
Shannyn, briefly, if she did run in a special election for Ted Stevens' seat, if she did have that opportunity, do you think she'd win?
Rachel, I didn't think Ted Stevens would be sitting where he's at right now. I didn't think Alaskans would vote in Don Young. You know, that's a huge switch there. So, you know, the only thing wilder in Alaska than our animals is our politics. So it's hard to tell what would happen.
Shannyn Moore, Alaskan radio journalist, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's great to have you on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, Rachel.